for coming. My name is Licia, and I'm a second-year PhD and working with Eytan. So today I'm going to present you VIZITCARDS, a toolkit that we have developed for infovis education. So when talking about infovis education, it's actually much more complicated than just making a bar chart or pie chart. In fact, based on previous studies, we have found 3 important components that a good infovis class should cover. First of all, we need to talk about visualization series. So students need to be able to explore the data space, and they need to understand encoding design, and also layout and data abstraction, task abstraction. Besides information visualization series, we also need to teach students about technology. So in order to implement their ideas into real artifacts and visualization, they might need to learn about these 3, JavaScript, Tableau, and any other tools. And the third component that's recently new is about design. In order to make a good visualization, we realize that students actually need to have some knowledge about design and design thinking. For example, they need to be able to prototype, they need to understand the concept of iteration, and they need to be able to evaluate their own designs. So this is exactly what we're doing at the School of Information. At School of Information, we have a course called SI 649. This is the information visualization class that Eytan has been teaching since 2010. And we offer this class 2 sections per year, and we got about 30 students for every section. And our students, of course, come from very diverse backgrounds. And we basically cover 3 components in the following way. First, we offer lectures, and by doing reading assignment and discussion, we hope to cover the theory part of the course. And we assign 5 different programming labs to the students so they can practice and learn the basic tools for building visualizations. For this third part, we're going to assign students an individual project and a group project. So this project basically are capstones where they got a chance to practice all 3 components. And as you can tell, those 3 components, the 3 parts that we're doing in the class are quite conventional. And most classes probably would have those components. But something that we're doing different in our infovis class is that we add design workshops that would cover the intersection between the theory and the design part. So why are we doing the design workshops? There are 3 major reasons. First, we think that design workshops are a good chance to simulate real-world design challenges. And they are good chances to students so that they can practice their concepts and skills that they have learned during the class. And thirdly, we think design visualization is a wicked problem. So you have to constantly making trade-offs and think about your design, doing evaluation, iterations. In order to teach this concept of wickedness in information and visualization design, we think we need the design workshops to do this job. So this design workshop has been going for a while, and we have been doing this following the steps. First, we give students a design challenge. For example, we might ask students to visualize the evolution of the web. In this particular example, they might be able to develop their own questions and come up with a solution. So for this particular visualization solution that students have developed, they might be interested in finding clusters in the web. That's how they designed and make this visualization. After they come up with a solution, we ask students, we would give them a professional solution and ask them to compare their solutions to the professional solution. After they have done the comparison, we ask them to prepare slides and present their comparisons to the whole class. So this is what we have been doing for years. I think this is great, and it has been helping students to learn information visualization design. However, we do find several challenges in this pattern. First of all, we find that our workshops actually need more structure. So think about this problem. Workshop 1 and Workshop 6 basically have the same instruction. We give them a problem, we ask them to come up with a solution. But students in the Workshop 1 probably are much less familiar with information visualization. But by week 6, by the last week, the last workshop, students probably have more information. So how do the learning objectives for the first workshop and last workshop stay the same? So we need some structure to support different learning objectives. The second challenge, we find that it's quite hard to put design thinking into design workshop. Even though they're doing it, they might not know how, and we're not so sure if we have given enough information. And the third challenge we find is a collaborative problem. We'll assign students into randomly assign students into a team for about 4 to 6 students. And if a student would become dominant in the whole group, some students might be left out and not actively participate in the discussion. So, in order to solve these 3 challenges, we developed VIZITCARD, a toolkit that's going to help us to structure our design workshops. So our toolkit is called VIZITCARD because we use a lot of cards during the workshop. And here are some images of students working during the workshop. So we would provide them different materials, different sets of cards, and also a complete set of instructions where they can follow and solve the challenge in a group. Okay, there are 2 very unique parts of the workshop that we really want to emphasize, and those are the key points of how we solve these challenges. The first part would be configurable component. Using different components, we are able to make different learning objectives for each workshop. And the second key point that we're making is we're using parallel collaborative prototyping to help address the second and the third challenge. So now I'm going to talk about how is this whole process done, but giving you a very simple start. Okay, so imagine this situation. You have a domain task, and you want students to do a visualization. How do you do it? If we do some if we analyze some previous study, we find that there are actually a lot of ways of doing visualization design. For example, this research probably gives 3 major steps and 9 mini steps that you can follow. So students would walk through learning, and then they implement, design, and deploy, finally got a visualization. We went through a lot of those models and tried to find a pattern of visualization design. However, this kind of model are not really doable in a class setting because we only have that amount of time, 90 minutes, and how can students walk through all the steps? And as you can see, this process is not linear. It goes back and it loops over. And this is quite hard for a class setting as well because of the time constraint and also students' experience. Therefore, our VIZITCARD is going to select the best features of this model and try to simplify it and making it work for the class setting. Okay, so back to our question. So now we know that we want students to do some design and then we want them to sketch it out. But the question remains, how do they sketch it out? Do they sketch as a group? Do they sketch as individual? And how do they actually present and agree with each other? So there are a lot of details that we have to figure out. And how do we solve the problem for collaborative design? So what if one person particularly just loves his or her design and want to use it as a group? Is there a good discussion time? To figure that out, we actually need some more concrete objectives. So there are 2 objectives that we find are particularly important for our workshop. First of all, we think that before making the decision on the final design, students should explore the design space, and then it's better to have diversity in their solutions. And secondly, we want to encourage peer learning and engagement by all team members. So basically, everyone needs to participate and contribute to the discussion. In order to do that, we reviewed literatures in design study and collaborative design and discovered this group prototype model. And we have a lot more details about this model in our paper, but now I'm just going to go straight to the conclusion. The conclusion would be we found that this particular pattern is very optimal for our workshop, and we're going to adopt this pattern for our workshop. So just to make it easier to see, this kind of pattern, we call it parallel collaborative prototyping. So basically, instead of doing one design, move on to the second design, we ask students to first do multiple design, and then sort of merge multiple design into one, and then do another multiple design, and try to do this parallel part. And instead of asking a group to work together all the time, we ask individuals to work independently first, and then try to collaborate in a group, and finally get a group design. This would be one of the key features of our workshop. So after figuring out the collaborating scheme that we're going to use for our workshop, let's look at some components that we have in the visit card. So the first component of the visit card is called domain. Basically, domain is the first step that you would do in order to design a visualization. In this step, you would analyze the target domain and hopefully finding a set of domain tags. In this step, we have given students a bunch of domain cards that have domain questions listed on them, and then they can select the ones that they're interested in and rank them by priority. So basically finalize what exactly do they want to find out with their visualizations. The second step is data. In this step, students would gather data, model data, understand what kind of data they're using. So in some examples, we just give them the data set, and some examples would give them a list of data where they can select. The third part is abstraction. In this step, students will map domain tags to abstract tags. And we also give them a bunch of abstract cards that we have designed, and then they can select the ones that are applicable to their domain tasks. The fourth step is encoding design. So this is a step where they actually design what kind of chart do you want to use and what kind of encoding mapping that they want to use. We support this step by giving them a bunch of inspiration cards, including the layouts, so different kinds of chart that they can use, and the inspiration cards, which include some very basic and fundamental principles for information visualization. Last but not least, we have evaluation. So in this step, students would generate feedbacks from others and from our teaching staff. And they will also evaluate their visualizations by comparing with professional solutions. So those are the very basic 5 components that we have for our visit card. But as I have mentioned, our visit cards are configurable. So there are 2 different ways that we're currently using for our workshop. The first way is called constructive. By constructive, we mean that students actually build something during the workshop. You give them a question, they walk through domain and data, abstract, encoding, and finally they get a visualization and then they evaluate it. So this is the constructive. We can also go in backwards. We give them a visualization, we ask them to analyze the encoding, abstract data, and find out what are the domain tasks that this visualization is supporting. So those are the 2 configurations that we're using right now. And I'm going to give you one example for both, for each direction, just to see how they're different from each other. So let's look at a constructive example first, because it's very straightforward and it's quite common to use constructive, and we have developed several versions of this. For the constructive version, we're assigning students a question called traffic analysis. So basically, we want them to develop a visualization that an end user can use to analyze traffic information. So this topic, I think, was actually inspired by Matthew's speaker on the bus arrival time. So yeah, people can use the visualization to find out where is my bus, how long do I have to wait. And for this task, we have 2 learning objectives. We want students to apply the infovis knowledge that they have learned during the class to their actual design. And we also want them to try prototyping and iterations. And this is the part where we actually used our prototyping collaborative scheme. To apply this to put this 2 learning objective into concrete steps, we developed this 4 steps that they're going through during the workshop. So first, domain, second data, parallel prototyping, and then evaluation. For the domain, again, they're giving a bunch of domain tasks, and then they're going to read it through, select the one that they're interested in, and then rank them by priority. And as you can see here, we actually allow them to put whatever question that they're interested in if they are not already included in our domain task. And for the second step, we give them a list of data, and then they will select the data that they are using for this particular visualization. For the third part, parallel prototyping. It's a little more complicated, so I'm going to break it apart to see how this is done step by step. But in a higher level, it's going to look like something like that. Yeah. So first of all, the student would go individual sketch, round 1. In this sketch, individual would work independently and develop 3 sketches. And at the end of the step, the group of 4 would have 12 sketches, and hopefully they're quite diverse. And after the individual round 1 sketch, groups get together, do a group discussion where they get feedback about their own design. And after the group discussion, they would go back on their own and do another sketch where they can either refine their previous one or they can develop new ones. After this step, students go back to group discussion where they finalize their design and generate the group consensus sketch. And the group consensus sketch is going to be the official solution for this problem for this group. And you can notice the group discussion are actually serving kind of like an evaluation process for them as well. But after the group sketch, they're also getting evaluation by comparing to professional solutions, and they also get our feedbacks. So here are some examples of the output that we have gathered during this workshop. So round 1, sketch 1, but this is all done by the same person. So this student is definitely exploring different possibilities of visualizing. So she developed different charts for sketch 1, sketch 2, and sketch 3. After the group discussion, she actually went back, sort of combined her previous approaches. So you can see the round chart here and also the lines. They're sort of similar to the previous sketch, but a more refined version. After this round 2 sketch, the group gathered together to do a group sketch. And this is the group sketch that this particular group has generated. And you can see some of the students' idea is represented into the final group sketch. And by looking through the process, we can kind of see how their ideas evolved and how the group collaboration happened. Okay, so that's for the constructive. Let's look at a deconstructive example. Remember, deconstructive is going backwards. So we give students visualization, and we ask them to decode them and analyze them and evaluate them. There are 3 steps that we're doing. First, we ask them to determine the encoding, and then we ask students to find the abstract task. So, and last, we ask them to evaluate. And for this particular workshop 1, we're actually giving them 2 visualizations that we want them to compare. So this is one of them. The first step, we ask them to identify the meaning of each mark on the visualization. So we ask them, what does the apple icon mean in this visualization? What does that green block mean in this visualization? And the second step, we give them a bunch of abstract task cards, and ask them to read the card and select the ones that are applicable for their for those visualizations. Thirdly, they're going to compare the difference between those 2 visualizations and using the effectiveness and expressiveness term in visualization. Okay, so after the steps, after the 3 steps, they're actually giving us a group report on the visualization, and based on this report and our observations during the workshop, we think the workshop is in general very successful because all teams have completed the disassemble of encoding, so they have knowledge about encoding design, and they have conducted in-depth comparisons for those 2 visualizations. So those are the positive side. But we do find students struggling with the notion of abstract tasks, and we do find some students have difficulty mapping abstract tasks to domain tasks. I think, well, we think this is quite reasonable because first, this is a very hard concept in information visualization, and this is the very first workshop that they're going to encounter in the course, so they might take a little longer to digest the concept. And in the future variations of the workshop, we try to adjust the abstract task components and try to make it easier for the students to understand. So that's for the deconstructive component. I'm going to wrap up by showing you some examples from our visit card module. We actually developed quite a bit workshops within this visit card. We have 6 different topics that we have covered, and based on those 5 components, we have 9 mechanics and 14 different materials that you can sort of combine, mix, and try to structure your own workshop. So here are the 6 topics that we have tried in our workshop. So the first one is the set one that we have seen, the deconstructive one, and the last one is the topic information. All of those information are actually online, so we try to make all the materials available so students and practitioners and teachers, of course, can use this workshop and continue to develop the toolkit. And all of the materials is posted on VIZITCARDS.org, and we have definitely more mechanics materials available online. So thanks for your attention. Yeah, and I'll take any questions that you have.
So during the team visualization or group visualization step, is the goal for them to combine elements of everyone's visualizations into one big one? Or to select one that works better, or doesn't matter?
We didn't specifically ask them to combine, so I think because the goal of the final visualization is to solve the task. So there may be situations where one particular visualization, one particular individual visualization is super good, and then the group just select that one. Or there are chances that each person has something to contribute, then that's a chance where they can sort of combine everyone's best feature together. So we didn't make specific rule telling them they should combine, they should include everyone's element, or they just select the best one. So it's up to them how to design that. Yeah.
Following up on that a little bit, were there certain, did you notice any patterns, I guess, in certain types of things that either were overridden by the group and usually replaced versus combined and kind of merged into the other ideas that were there?
You mean for the particular visualization? Are there anything that's normally discarded or normally?
Yeah, like every time somebody put in a bar chart, it was thrown away or something.
We might have something for pie chart in that sense, but that's more because of the course, I think, than because of the workshop.
I think this is great. You started off with this parallel structure. You said it's one of the best, in terms of the results. Just, I guess, what was the evaluation process like?
Okay. So we did several different ways to evaluate. If we go back to this chart, so the EES score, which I didn't talk about, is one of the ways that we're evaluating them. So the EES score stands for effectiveness, expressiveness score. So effectiveness and expressiveness are basically some kind of qualities or standards that we want to evaluate the visualization. And we develop a scale ranging from 0 to 4, which we can actually use that to score their visualizations. So what we did was we scored each one, and then we compare with the result from last year's, where we didn't have the visit card, and we see some difference. And the second way of how we are evaluating it is basically using the number of sketches and analyze how different they're from each other, and would the group have higher EES scores. So it's quite a challenge to actually evaluate it because it's so diverse and it's based on their selection and based on, sometimes even based on their drawing skills, right? If they documented it terribly, we could not understand anything, then how do we assign them a good score, right? So it's something that we're still working on, but we believe that this prototyping is giving us a lot more diversity in the solution.
Speaking of diversity, have you used these cards outside of your own class?
Actually, the last one, the traffic information, this is a workshop that we run with only 8 students after the class. Yeah, so that's the only workshop that we run after the class. And we're hoping that someday we can make the workshop more general, so more people, maybe practitioners or people who just outside of class settings but are interested in workshop can use this kind of structure.
So you talk about having this design workshop as a way to teach information visualization, and I was wondering, is there the concept of like a progression, and by that I mean like basic elements or even difficulty that's like designed within the card? Just curious.
Basic difficulty in design with
Well, I mean, so I assume when you teach the class, there's something that you probably have to teach at the very beginning, and then there you get more advanced or more complex problem with the design knowledge. And I was wondering, like, is that something that being considered in the card, or you purposely decide not to do that?
I think what we have done last year was we put different examples that are related to the topic of that day. So you will see the first class, I mean the first workshop, you might have a small deck, and then the deck continue to develop, and then that's sort of how we deal with that question at this moment. Yeah. Okay, great. Thanks everyone.